This is a summary of part 2 of Gulliver's Travels. Now, we already talked about the very widely well known part number 1, but we don't really know much about part number 2, at least it's not as well known as the rest. So let me go ahead and tell you guys about the entire story of part 2 right now. Remember and recall that in part 1 we had the Lilliputians, where our giant Gulliver himself had to go ahead and deal with these little different creatures who were very little. They could see as close up as it's like a 1-to-1 ratio, a scale of a giant person to what a small person will see. Like a small person will probably see like only about this far, whereas our giant people can like see very very far. Like they can't see as far as our Gulliver can, but he can't see as near as they can. So what happens instead is this. As Jonathan Swift himself has went ahead and read the story, we now go to his second voyage. After 2 months of coming back to England, he started to get restless again, and he decides to go on another voyage. And this time, though, he arrives at this giant place. He finds these cornstalk fields that are very very tall, and he's confused and how should he even get out of these. But he realizes that this land is very gigantic and that he's probably become a Lilliputian in their eyes. And in this case, though, he finds and greeted by a giant. This is a giant farmer, and he decides that this guy is an interesting kind of person and that he would go ahead and keep him as a pet. Mostly, though, he realizes that he is not as treated as the same as an actual normal human being. He's treated as a little bit above than an animal. But still, he's still considered an animal. They go ahead and they decide to go ahead and find out what he likes, what happens to him, what they can do about it, and they just keep him for entertainment. Of course, his wife himself is scared of Gulliver, mainly because, women are scared of spiders and other sort of insects, typically of the English women at the time, but then starts to gain respect towards him. He tries to demonstrate his ability and his civility and that he is actually very intelligent, but then he realizes that these guys are a bunch of dumb people. I will explain that this will become very relevant towards later. Eventually, the farmer goes ahead and sells Gulliver, you can sell Gulliver, towards the queen of the land. By the way, this land, it's called Brobdingnag. Brobdingnag. Anyways, let's get back. Brobdingnag, where he goes ahead and becomes sold towards the royal court. Now, in the royal court, he himself is being treated as like an amusement kind of thing, like a pet. And so the royal queen herself goes ahead and sees him as something that's very incredible and something that's worth protecting and keeping over. And so as a result, she goes ahead and treats him with the utmost kind of respect and decides to let him play around in the court and become literally their pet. He tries to go ahead and show that he is very intelligible and that he can speak the very good English, but once again, they're talking a different language, so he has to learn it. He does learn it eventually. And once again, he is dumbfounded by the stupidity of these people. Even the king himself knows nothing about politics. Every one of them even has laws that are probably no much longer and comprise not much longer than their alphabet. Short, they do know how to print stuff, but literally, they probably don't even have books because they have nothing to really write about. Even the things that they do print, it's just simple kinds of words that are so simple that he himself, Gulliver himself, could probably learn a little bit more. Now, as a result, in his intellectual discussions with the king, he tries to go ahead and show how awesome and magnificent Mother England was. How magnificent England was at the time. And in fact, England was a pretty good place too. But then the king is all this guy's foolish. This guy probably has no idea what he's talking about, yada, yada, yada. And as a result, goes ahead and tries to show him that this is very insignificant and that his life itself, his England, was not as significant as his literal own kingdom, mainly because it was very, very small. Our protagonist decides to go ahead and try to show him the wonders of everything that England has created, or at least found, and then he goes ahead and shows them gunpowder, tries to go ahead and give a little friendship towards them. Unfortunately, he himself, the king, is like, what the heck is this? I don't need this. It probably looks stupid anyway. It's probably a stupid little thing that they made anyway, and so it refuses the offer, and this goes ahead and shocks him. The king is shocked because, seeing how this little pet wants to be his friend, and then he is shocked thinking that the king has just turned away a very good offer. But come to think of it, can a gun really harm them? Well, yes, but probably won't kill them. One thing else that Gulliver himself mentioned is that everything about them is magnificent and it's magnified too. It's one of those being the impartialities, the other things. Pimples and things and those little warts that on real normal people you probably wouldn't really notice unless you look really carefully. Well, on giant people, they are also gigantic, so you can probably think that he's going to be very disgusted by it. So that when he's allowed to go ahead and play on the naked bodies of some of the people on the court, he's not attracted to them, but instead repulsed, mainly because, well, their warts are bigger than normal in his perspective. Now, eventually, he wants his freedom, obviously. It's because he's spent 2 years in this kingdom. Unfortunately, the royal court themselves, they refused this offer. And so one day, while he's in his cage, going ahead and imagining how he could probably get out of this place, how he could escape from this, and while the giant royal couple are all like, hey, let's have some fun together, let's leave him behind, he wants to sleep anyway, and then he tries to think of a way to get out of this when an eagle comes up and snatches him, and, well, he's in like a little cabinet, and so as a result, when he's dropped, he lands in the sea, and he's scared that he will go ahead and drown. Fortunately for him, he doesn't drown. He is found by a boat people. And they go ahead and say that, hey, you're going to be fine. You're going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and rescue you. Nothing's going to happen towards you. This is going to be fine. He goes and they're going to use a crowbar to break it open. And then he's like, you can just go ahead and use your sum. And they're all like, ha 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 ha. They laugh. And then he realized, it's only then that he realized that he's back with people living with him. Now, he has trouble adjusting back to life there. He finds himself shouting all the time, mainly because he has to talk to giants, so of course he had to shout. He seems to have become very dull and very deaf, possibly because he's been living with giant sounds for 2 years. And he has certainly become very agitated. His wife going ahead on his return saying that he must not ever, ever go sailing ever again. Please do not go back to the sailing. Obviously, we know that this doesn't happen because there's a part 3 and a part 4. So that's it. That's the summary of part 2 of Gulliver's Travels. I hope to see you guys soon. Until next time, Shihana, peace. Bye bye.